Welcome to Your Tru Awakening, the podcast where we dive deep into what it means to live your purpose and create a life that feels true to who you are. I'm your host, Sandra True, here to guide you on a journey of soulful exploration, inner mastery. So together, we're here to unravel the layers, challenge the status quo, and unlock wisdom that helps you shine from the inside out. Each week, we'll have a powerful conversation with some of the world's most inspiring spiritual mentors and artists who are lighting the way for a more conscious, abundant, and joyful life. From ancient wisdom to modern practices, we'll explore transformative tools and inspiring stories to help you live, love, and lead authentically. Whether you're at a turning point, stepping into your power, or simply seeking more depth and meaning in your everyday moments, this is your invitation to step out of the ordinary and break free from old patterns and awaken your true potential. So if you're ready to laugh, reflect, and expand, you're in the right place. So let's get started. I'm so excited to have Lana Rose with me today. She's the founder of Conscious Concierge, a personalized wellness service helping people navigate what's next on the other side of their well-being journey. She connects clients to a trusted network of practitioners, modalities, and experiences to support mental, physical, and emotional, and of course, spiritual well-being. With a background in TV advertising, a deep personal healing journey, Lana now blends professional insights with her heart-led guidance to help others find aligned, transformative support. I love this. I love this so much that you do. And this is how Lana and I connected, actually, through speaking and sharing about our deep healing journeys. And I'm so excited to have you here with us today because the conversation that we wanted to have with you is why we connected, which was our live in New York, the hustle culture, and how the understanding that hustle is not working for the culture, right? It's burning you out, and how to create a life that is more in alignment with our natural rhythms that can support both our purpose, but also to be in action in it. Lana, how are you? Glad to have you here.
Good. Thank you for having me. So excited for this conversation. I love talking about the New York days.
I'm proud of them in a way.
Me too. They were a vibe. New York, Lana was a vibe.
Oh, so was I. Oh my God.
We would have hung out in New York in that vibe.
But it wasn't sustainable, right? Like it's a lifestyle that you can sustain for a chunk of your life, but it's not sustainable long term. So
Yeah.
do you want to tell us a little bit about your life in New York?
Yeah.
How that hustle was alive in you?
Yeah. So I'm originally born and raised in New Jersey, so not far away. My dad's from New York City, Brooklyn to be specific. And I lived and worked in New York for pretty much all of my days. And I was living like the quintessential New York City life. I was working corporate and I was working hard and I was partying harder. And that was my life, it really fit me for that version of myself. Like I really thrived in that environment. At the time until I didn't. But I worked in TV advertising. So first I started working for the media agencies, which is, if you've ever seen the show Mad Men, it's basically based on that. So I worked for a lot of the agencies. I was buying the ad space on TV, the commercial space. And then I moved to the sales side. I always had a very outgoing, extroverted personality, charismatic. And so I quickly saw the salespeople were the ones bringing in the real money. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sales. So I started working for the TV networks. And so I would sell the physical ad space when you'd see the commercials, like the Super Bowl commercials, the Oscars, those spots, or just in regular television. So it was like, I remember like waking up at 5 a.m., going to Equinox, being showered, ready, leaving at, 8:30, getting on the subway, being spit on by 3 homeless people on the way, and then getting to my desk by 9 a.m. with like my meal prepped food for the week. And I had like a whole day before I even got to my desk. And so it was a grind, obviously then usually working from like 9 to 7 p.m. And then I was either taking out clients or at a work event, or I would go to a dinner, or I was partying. So I'd kind of wake up and do it all over again. So for me, it was a lot of drinking, a lot of Adderall. It's just that very fast paced. it was a blast, and it definitely laid the groundwork. Like I said in that bio, in that intro, a lot of what I do now, like the foundation was laid there as like a business person and as a businesswoman, and that acumen that I obtained during that time. But yeah, it wasn't sustainable, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I love it. It makes me, as you were sharing, it makes me think of like how back then I used to think, "Oh, I need a drink or I need whatever external support with substances." It was a way of taking care of ourselves,
Yeah.
in a very distorted way of taking care
Yeah.
of what needed to get done.
But yeah, like a spicy marg, that was like my go-to. I was like the girl you called when you wanted to like either know where to go that was going to be like lit, or like you needed to like blow off steam and you needed a marg or like a dry martini. Like I was the girl.
Yeah. So I love that so much because when I think about my life now, it's so different. Like
I know.
I attempt to be in bed by 9:30, or in my bathtub by 9:30 reading,
Totally.
and like I wake up with the sunrise, and that's kind of my rhythm, right? Like that's my rhythm now. Like how do I align myself with the rhythms of life so I can have more support naturally by the energetics that are being played by the greater body, which is earth, right? And so that's kind of like my rhythm. Is there a rhythm that you have, that something that you're sinking into now after doing all the healing journey? Like does it come from spirit, from like personal practices, or like an impulse to organize in some sort of way? Like how are you defining your rhythm now?
Yeah. I mean, there's a big gap, right? In the from the life I was living to the life now, completely different, like how I got there. And maybe we'll get into that story. But as for the life now, it looks very different than that life. So, the rhythm is completely changed. I definitely wasn't, aware at that point in life back then that I even like even what a practice was, like a daily practice. And so now I too wake up with the sun, and the most recent practice that I've put in place is waking up and praying. So my boyfriend and I, we pray every morning as soon as our eyes open. And the way we pray is just whatever feels real for us in the moment. We
I
both
love
have different backgrounds and of, how we were raised and things that we're into even now. And so we just like pray and whatever comes out for us, and we kind of switch off on who leads it. And then I always go outside to the balcony before getting started with the day and do a meditation. Practices, I always want them to feel like really exciting, or like not like a chore and necessary. So right now I've also been just experimenting with different things that really feel like I'm honoring my body versus like you need to go out and meditate. And so right now, prayer and the direct meditation right after outside is my current like setup for the day.
I love it. Yeah, for so many years I was so rigid and structured with my practice, and I was teaching a lot, and it was really helpful for me to have like that strong discipline. And as I get older, not to say that it's not good to have discipline, especially when you're building habits, but as I get older, it's really more like you say, like, what do I need today? And like
Yeah.
my listening has gotten so much better, which is like every day I start with me time, right? That sometimes looks like journaling, that sometimes looks like a really long walk on the beach. Sometimes that looks like me doing deep inner work on my altar, crying and doing whatever needs to do to release any sort of emotion that's keeping me from being in good flow and connection, right, with myself, with life. And so when I think about the tools, it's like all these tools that I've taken, right? And the gap. And like speaking about the gap, like, yeah, now we're living in alignment with our own rhythms of the day, right? I'm thinking about the circadian rhythm, waking up with the sun and allowing our body to go to sleep at a at an earlier time. But there's the gap, right? And for both of us, we've been on this healing journey of working with personal movement and regulating our nervous systems, working with a lot of practitioners. I know for sure I started working with a lot of mentors. For me, the medicine path, I know that you've also worked with the medicine and being in greater coherence with my whole field. And I know for you too, like, can you tell us a little bit about like that gap?
Yeah, like how I got here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was living and working in New York, like living the dream. And when I turned 30, it was the pandemic. So things got pretty serious in New York during that time, and well, in the whole world. And I was in a relationship, and in the relationship, he was struggling with substance abuse at the time. And so it was really, the first time I just was, I would say, just like really broken open. I had been on the journey of personal development, self-development since I was a young girl. But this was something that was like really, really, really the first time I just like collapsed, and I thought the world was ending. And when the relationship ended, I thought, everything's over because I'm only 30. And so the options at the time were therapy and medication, pharmaceuticals, which are great options. It's just that I had exhausted those. And I had this intuitive feeling to seek other options. And so I went out to South America because I had a friend out there and he was telling me about the medicine, ayahuasca and stuff. And so I went to Colombia and I really just started going deep on all the alternative modalities. So I worked with plant medicine, I worked with energy healing, I started working with mentors and guides and going deep in spirituality. I started really working with naturopathic medicine and functional medicine. And throughout that whole journey, I was just like a sponge. I just wanted to understand, why did I attract what I attracted into my life? Why was I so, feeling just so anxious? And when I had already been to things like therapy in my life, like I just wanted to understand myself deeply.
Isn't that a funny gap? Isn't that a funny gap? Because something that I come to with a lot of the work that I do with clients is like, at the level of trying to understand it, we don't do anything. Right? Or trying to solve it mentally, nothing really happens. It must
Yeah.
happen from really understanding that our body is also the antenna of consciousness. That if we're not rooted in our body, we can't be rooted in this heart, which is like the Wi-Fi to our soul. And unless we
Yeah.
have that connection, the more that we're thinking about, let me have a new mindset or let me have a new way of, like, it's just like changing masks and not doing the true like rooted work of knowing who is there, like who's there, right? And it sounds like through all of that, all of those modalities, you got a sense of like, who's Lana beyond her name even.
Yeah, it was a deep journey and it was just like a lot of unraveling. Like you're saying, it's all in the body. And I had been so used to talking about, I was already aware, of the childhood and all the things that we all go through as, we all have things from childhood and whatnot. And so, yeah, it was a really deeper, much deeper dive, and also like a deep test to my intuition, because I had a feeling there was another way besides SSRIs and Xanax and things that I was offered. So, I started getting off birth control and taking out the Adderall and just like slowly, little by little, like coming back to myself and finding this whole, what I call like this whole new world of alternative modalities, right? Which are now pretty becoming more mainstream. But yeah, so, I ended up really feeling like it was time to leave that world that I was in New York, because it required like so much focus to be in the career that I was in. So I started having an intuition feeling like, okay, I've changed and therefore I don't like, it's not resonant anymore. But that was a couple of years, of like the push pull because of the money and because of like it being the identity and what I feel like it did for me to introduce myself, walking in a room with, hi, my name is Lana, I work at this TV network, so it was a journey. But what I saw throughout the journey was, I kept feeling like, who's the person you go to when you want to learn about all of this stuff? Like, yeah, great. I can, there's plant medicine and there's coaches and mentors and guys, but like, who can explain all of this to me? Like, who's in charge here? I kept being like, who's in charge of this world? And so, yeah, eventually I ended up stepping in and creating a role where people can come and learn about pretty much, everything outside of what's the normal options, and more so helping them figure out a combination of things that work for them. And even if it is therapy and medication, and also being exposed to these other things, that was how it kind of came to be.
Yeah, a couple of things that you said that really stood out for me. The first one was how you were, the first one that you mentioned, that you were in this process of like trying, going back and like having the loss of identity, right? Like having like, that it wasn't immediate, that it was a couple of years of like, what is resonant, right? That's the word that really stood out for me, because how do people know what's resonant? It's very hard to know what's resonant to you if it's not embodied. And what's it mean? Like we hear that word all the time. Like what does embodiment even mean? And it truly means like being in action with your truth, meaning in your physical form. And unless we have a connection to our body, it's very hard to have our intuition, because our intuition is also connected to all of our senses, right? It's like it's what gives, it gives volume to our senses. It's like that it comes as a nudge, it comes as a gnosis, it comes as a thing in our belly, or without evidence. So we don't have any evidence. And for so many of us, we doubt our intuition because we're disconnected from the body, right? And so you were sharing that story of like, okay, you went on this all so many practices, and also feeling like you were, who's the person, like there's a gap here. Like who can teach me, like
I was like, who's in charge of the marketplace here? Because I need to go in the direction of the CEO of this world.
Yeah. Which is really interesting. I end up being that person for so many people as they come to me, and they usually come to me of a place of like, I don't know I've done the therapy. I've done the therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it for years. And we go back to the same conversation that often most therapy, that it's just psychology or psychiatry, that we're trying to solve something from a mask, right? Like here's who this is your story, and you have this trauma, and let's validate why you should feel sorry for yourself and why you have all these reasons. And at the end of the day, who cares? You know, who cares that you have all this trauma? We all have it. And I mean, you shouldn't care. But at the end of the day, it's like to become aware. We go through the process of becoming aware, which is the first necessary step. And in order for us to change our lifestyle that is keeping us in hustle mode, we must also know that we have to activate choice. That it's not just about becoming aware and staying in the portal of I am aware of all my things, but what are the actions that I can start to take in order to be in greater alignment with a life that is resonant to me, meaning a life that feels good in my body, in my mind, in my spirit, that is giving me energy instead of draining energy. And it takes courageous action, because sometimes we will do the things we've been doing, even if it's not, even if it doesn't feel better, but it's just because it's what we know. So celebrating you for making that tough decision, because I know what it is also to walk away from the rat race, you know, from the pretty check. You go to work and you get that check and you got that safety. Um, and it's like the balance of like, what do I want? I want that safety, or am I willing to do something with meaning, something that is actually making me come alive? You were sharing before that a lot of people a lot of people think that, you know, when you're becoming more conscious or when you're becoming healthier, that means that you're going to work less, or that it means, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of like on the internet, like glamorizing entrepreneurship, especially in like the spiritual wellness world, that like once you find your purpose, it's just like smooth sailing and like you just work a couple hours a day and it's, you know, maybe for some people, but I think that that is a little bit like Instagram glamorized. I think what the difference is for me, I'll always speak from me, and just I have seen this with other friends, is the amount I'm working on Conscious Concierge, like physically doing work for it, is pretty similar to the hours I was working at in my corporate job. The difference is inspired action versus forced action. So getting up in the morning, getting on that subway, getting to the office, like the dread of spending the whole day there, and just like, you know, being gone for that many hours, not being able to cook my food, and then also the work that I was doing. You know, as soon as I changed, it became less resonant, right? So maybe there was a time in life where it was lighting me up because I loved television and I loved, like, you know, that the parties and all of that we were going to. But when I started changing, I started noticing it wasn't as resonant anymore. And the work started feeling really forced. And so I think that's the key. It's like I wake up and I can't wait to get started working on concierge. I work on the weekends, I work at night, I work in the morning. And it's really because it's not forced, it's completely inspired. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think you do have the freedom, to work the hours that you want to work when it's your own thing, but you also have the pressure, right? Of like the pressure of it's your own thing. No one's telling you what to do. So for me, I don't work on it less per se. I just am inspired by what I'm doing. So it feels very natural and exciting to do.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that, because I speak a lot about, from going from pushing to allowing to receiving. And what are you receiving? It's not like you're receiving the free check, right? It's like what you're receiving is like that activation when you know what it is that you're moving through, when there's meaning and purpose in what you're doing, because it's adding to your life, because you feel connected to something that is true to you, is a natural expression of of like what you're here to give. And it really is a service that is making you feel more a part of life, when you get so clear that what you're doing is your unique expression, right? It's like we have this idea that, and we say that a lot in the spiritual community, is like, oh, because I'm God and I'm a particle of God. And that's really nice. And I think that, I believe that's true. We're a particle of God. We're true. But more than we are God, is like God is us, right? And it's trying to do something. So the importance of getting to a place of having a regulated nervous system, of having a good connection with our body, good connection with our relationships, doing the inner work to heal whatever needs to be healed, so that we can be fully present to receive the information that is uniquely true to us. And that's like what actually allows us to move out of the hustle of like, I'm doing to perform, to show other people that I'm worthy, to I'm doing, and it might take as much action, but I'm doing because I'm activated with my truth, right? And it feels like it wants to flow out of me. And a lot of people are stuck in that hustle because they are trying to buy their worth. Even busyness, I can look at my life in hindsight. It's like I was overly busy and staying busy just because I needed to. That's what I learned. Like, if life has to be hard, and you gotta, and all this conditioning that we hear, but none of it was precisely giving me the electricity, like the voltage to keep me in doing my own work consistently. And that's doing the inner work, using healing as a success strategy in a way, right? Like healing and coming home to yourself as a success strategy, so that you're not doing in order to get, applause by others, but you're in action in order to serve.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's so important because we're also always changing. So originally in my career, it was very resonant. It did light me up. I was really into the event and the entertaining dinners and all of that. I loved talking about what TV shows I was watching. As soon as I shifted, it was about recognizing like, okay, I've shifted. So what's resonant for me now? When we shift so drastically, especially working with the medicines and stuff like that, we really do change a lot. And same with just getting older, like things just shift for us. And I think that's a crucial thing to tap into, like what does it mean when something's resonant or no longer resonant? And this work, after doing so much personal work on myself, it was kind of all I wanted to talk about. It's just like the voltage, like it was just like I was so lit up by it and how much I learned that I just wanted to talk about it all day long. And it just like wasn't the forum for it in that world. People were like, okay, so I just knew eventually that I would want to be speaking about this. The work that I'm doing now, when it's changing someone's life and they're so, expanded and they're so happy and they're so like connected, it feels much more fulfilling to me than that version of myself that was in that role. You don't have to quit corporate tomorrow to experience that, but It just depends where you're at and what you're hoping to do while you have time here on the planet, in this life.
Totally. I mean, I work for corporate and entertainment. I work for nightlife, and I work for the best nightclub in New York City.
Up and down. Which one?
Lavo,
Up and down.
Lavo, New York.
Oh, Lavo is the best, technically. Yeah.
And I
Like up and down.
and it was crazy money. We made ridiculous amount of money. And I remember there was times where I would leave a ceremony in upstate New York or traveling or whatever, and by the weekend I was already, Thursday I was at work, and my system was so open, and just feeling the, oh my, serving a glass of alcohol, champagne. We used to sell parades and parades of super expensive, ridiculously charged champagne, and just pouring that and feeling like a drug dealer, because I was like, God, this is like, I have never seen anyone mutate more than on alcohol, on any drug. And so I think I stopped drinking like a year and a half before I left nightlife, just so I could feel how terrible that was to me, and not numb out the discomfort to find my way out of it. Like, because the same thing, like the check, leaving my penthouse, leaving like, hard. And so still, like, I love my life now so much more, because every day I wake up and it's like I'm probably doing more, because there's, right, everything that I'm doing is an expression of me, but it's what I want to be doing. It's like I want to be doing what I am doing. I would, if I had all the resources in the world, I would be doing this. And it's like, when you can get to that point of your lifestyle, your business, your everything, it's in alignment with who you are becoming, which is not set in stone. I really love that you're saying that. And it's not that that it's not about doing less, but it's doing more with purpose, doing more with meaning. It's like that gap is essentially like really learning to listen to what lighting you up, was giving you that voltage of clarity, which I really think is how our soul speaks to us. I know that our soul speaks to us by what's making us come fully alive. I think it's like the breadcrumbs that it leaves for us to remember who we are. And many of us are ignoring those hits because it doesn't make sense. Right? How will I make a living doing that? It doesn't make sense. It's like, it's crazy. But I think it requires a whole lot of crazy to live a life that's true to you.
Yeah, I mean, so many things. First of all, it's a great example how we both have of the fast pace, because yours was in nightlife and, acting, and mine was in corporate. So it's all different iterations of that fast paced life. But you said something about, I forget, but I'll touch on this point. I mean, I always leave it open too. Like, this is what's resonant for me now. Concierge could shift in time, and it has. Like, originally I was like really more holistic only, I would say, like helping people who are ready to come in the holistic world, and now it's like it's shape shifted into helping somebody craft their path, even if it's conventional and medications and things like that. It's like building a game plan for them and introducing other things. It's not like and or, so as my mindset has evolved, so has concierge, and I just always leave the door open. And the other thing you said was about thinking, like, being a little crazy to follow it, and being kind of unsure how the thing that lights you up is going to make you money. I remember knowing I had a place in this world, but like, I knew I wasn't the shaman or the medicine woman or the coach or the guide or the healer or the practitioner. So I was like, well, what am I then? And so I remember doing an exercise, like calling my mom, and I was like, what is like my greatest gift? Like, and she's like, I've been telling you since you're a young girl, your greatest gift is your insane ability to make friends and have so many friends, and how quickly you connect with, the emo kid in high school and the cheerleader, and like, you've just always like worked a room like that. And so I was like, how unhelpful. Like, what am I going to do with that? And I remember really like sitting on that for a while. And my boyfriend, who was just my best friend at the time, he was just like, this is your role in this world. You are a connector. People come to you because they trust you and because they love to see what you're doing. And like, you have an uncanny ability to like really build that relationship with people. And then you have a huge network of people. So it was really him that like, and my mom that sort of showed me the gifts. And so to anyone listening who's like, well, I don't know my place and how I'm gonna do this with like what's I'm great at, you know, ask your mom, what is your greatest gift? Because there's something there.
Your personal relationships, and also like tell her what your gifts were when you were little. I think that that's a
Yeah,
key point, because
even more.
yeah, you and I were speaking about how when we're little, we're fully activated, which is how we want to get to be as adults, right? We were fully activated. We were just like light voltages of life, just like doing all the things, doing whatever inspired us, whatever we wanted to create. But through conditioning, we stopped doing that, because behave well, sit in the corner, act like your sister, do all these things to get better and be good boy and girl. And so all of a sudden we start blocking this natural gifts that we have. And it's so important to get connected. So much of the healing work is actually, so much of the work that most of us are doing through different ways, is how do I reconnect myself with the part of me that's so connected to my soul, right? Because like I think that it's important not only to do the childhood healing, the inner child healing, which is such a big part of my work, but it's also about how do I do the inner child maturity and bring that child to start guiding my life, right? Like how do I help that inner wisdom of that ancient gnosis that I came here to be activated as the adult that I am now. And when we do that, it's just like, yeah, we are now living in literally more electricity, because we have more energy to do the thing that it feels true to us naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great conversation to have with the people you love that knew you for a long time. Like, what am I good at? Sometimes we forget, and sometimes we think it sounds silly, but it really was a big starting point
Yeah.
for me to start to like really think about that. And yeah, I think it can be helpful.
Yeah, for me it was transformation. Since I was a child, all I wanted to do was change characters and be loose from it. And I lived in costumes, and I made things beautiful, and I make spaces beautiful, and I would transform everywhere I went. And it was that. And then I lived with many caretakers that were not my mom, my aunts, and other people through my formative years. So then I started to mold for them, and like, make sure that I behaved so I could have the currency of love, because love is like, as you're a child, that's what you work for in some sense. And so really losing a lot of my own innateness to create and to explore and to express uniquely. And I think that creates a lot of people pleasing, which is something that is very in our culture, is a big issue. Many of us are people pleasing and doing jobs and careers and working on things because it gives us something that validates our relationships, other people, our own identification. I was gonna say ego, but the ego is just part of our identity. And usually what leads most people to go on a healing journey is a little death of their identity, right? It's the breakup, is the closing of their business, of the job, is their health, right? They push so hard that their health it can no longer sustain that push. And so then they usually come to me, or they'll come to you probably for the same reason, right? Like I am disconnected. I don't know how to keep going forward. And I know that I want to do something that's more meaningful. I want to have meaning in life. And that's where it starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely hear that a lot.
Yeah. And so I think that's so beautiful for anyone listening to. And if you find yourself in a place of like it's no longer doing it for me, find support. Even like think about your environment. Like start to give yourself the environment that can support the vision of like, or the things that are really interesting you. Like for me, I was a yogi. I was an actor. I was a yogi, and and I was working nightlife, and it was so out of congruency. What I wanted to do, and the health and the exploration of consciousness and play, and then I was just like go and be seen as this sexy thing, and that's the kind of thing. It was painful. I was doing deep character work on stage, and then it was go be this, play this role, and you're limited to that. And so my invitation for anyone is just like, if you find something that's giving you natural curiosity and you can keep your flow and wanting to learn more about it, you don't know where it might lead you, keep at it. Keep doing the thing and exploring the thing that's giving you free energy, because it might just be the thing you do tomorrow. It was for both of us. So
yeah, like When I first started doing the inner work, I was like, oh my God, just like everyone does after a ceremony, like, I need to be in this world. Like, I want to help everybody. And then they all brought me back to like, just stay focused on yourself. And like, eventually something will come, like, your purpose will come to you. People are obsessed with purpose. I was for a long time, you know, and it's like, sometimes your purpose is just to focus on healing you and focus on yourself before we, take on the world. And so I spent 3 years listening to that guidance, whether it was a coach or a shaman, just really like focusing on me and like my process. And eventually it showed up, and so following the curiosities, and like I naturally loved to learn about these things and these ways of being. And it was all market research for me in the end.
Bringing some of the past back. Yeah, I have a keynote that it's called Your Purpose is You, because we keep looking for it out there. Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Is it that? But actually, who you're looking for is you. And once you work is like, how do I get clear on who I am, what I need? And your purpose is your story. It's the things that you will fight for, the things that you stand for, because you know their pain and you know their possibility. And it's important for you to know that, because that's the path in. And there's so many people, especially if you're crazy enough to be an entrepreneur, like that's the thing that's going to make you unique and have your own way of being in the world, right? And also, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It really is.
No.
There's so many people that you can be the best allies to. Not all of us are visionaries, and I would not be able to do anything I do without the support of my team. And so really saying that it's not just about go do something on your own. It can also be go do something that you stand for and that matters to you, supporting a team.
I think that's really important, an important distinction. Like, never in my dreams was I hoping to be an entrepreneur. I just kept wanting to work for companies that were aligned. And so I think that's also a path too. Being an entrepreneur is really hard. I actually wouldn't recommend it to anyone who's like not like really, really sure. It's like very challenging. And so if it's something you want to do, great. But if you feel like you have to do it, absolutely not. I mean, you can work for somebody that you really believe in, or a company that's, again, like what you said, aligned with what you stand for. That's perfectly fine too.
Yeah. And with that also, it's like looking at how do you spend, right? Like also supporting where you're spending. Like a good way to curate your environment is also that, not who you're working for and what you're giving your energy, just your physical energy and your work to, but also how you're spending. Start supporting things that you believe in, right? Like your money, your donations, the things that you're buying. Like pay attention to that, because that's also you realigning your environment with what's more resonant to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, Lana, if anyone's listening to this and they were to say like, oh gosh, I really hear what you're saying, I would love to just ask you, what would you say to your younger self when looking back and seeing her hustle so hard? What would you say to her?
I would really say to her to just like enjoy the moment. I was always, like many of us, always really, really, truly trying to get to the next thing, like the next title or the next salary, the next relationship. I was really focused on the next thing. And so I would definitely tell her to enjoy every moment, being so young in the 20s. And I was so worried that I was old at 27, 28. I cried on my 26th birthday. I'm like, like I just turned 35, and I'm like, any of my friends that are younger, I just always like, just enjoy, like it will all work out. If it's not, didn't work out yet, it's not the end. And that's something I tell myself now, being 35, just like enjoy.
Oh,
let yourself just enjoy it.
so
This is the youngest you'll ever be. And that's what I would say to the hustling version of myself, to at least just slow down and enjoy it. And
yeah.
yeah.
Breathe into the moment. Breathe into the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love that. Yeah. I'd love to send that message back to my younger self, and also like a big thank you. I'd love to say to my hustling, nonstop, continuous learn. Like not only was I working like crazy, I was studying all the things. Right? I never stopped eating up information.
Yeah.
And so I would say to her, like, thank you, because I think, I believe she did all of that so I didn't have to now. that now I could just focus on my build and what I'm doing and on the becoming, but with a completely different rhythm. I think in honor of her, in a way, I think in honor of saying thank you to the part of me that never stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Love
you
that.
so much, Lana. I loved having you here today. If anybody wants to find you, where can they find you and your work?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. I loved being here too. And you can find me at Your Conscious Concierge on Instagram and www.yourconsciousconcierge.com. I have my consultations that you can always book in. And I also just started a women's group for women doing the work who can come together and grow and support each other on this path. And so you can find all those offerings on my website and on my Instagram.
Yay, amazing. Yes, and if you're listening to this podcast up to now, if you have been living from hustle to urgency, from a nervous system that's always trying to prove, please know that there's another way. There's another way. And this fall, I'm guiding a group of conscious creators, visionaries, artists, mentors through a 12-week experience that reconnects you to your rhythm, your essence. It's called the Conscious Creator Experience. And we don't just talk about slowing down, we learn to embody a new way of moving, creating, and leading in a way that nourishes the soul and connects us with our purpose. So if you're feeling called, stay connected with me, stay connected with Lana for her programs and her offerings also. It would be a joy for me if you subscribe to this channel, if you liked it, and if you know anyone that can benefit from this, please share it. And see you next week on our next episode of Your Tru Awakening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.